It began not with a bang, but with a quiet tremor inside the courtroom, one so subtle, yet so devastating, it would rattle the very foundation of what once was the Brown family empire. The judge's robe swayed gently as he approached the bench, the gallery packed with spectators, press and family, all waiting for the final decision that would determine the fate of Coyote Pass. On one side of the courtroom sat Janelle and Christine, calm but visibly exhausted, their lawyers flanking them with stacks of financial disclosures, text messages, and trust documents now weaponized as evidence. On the other, Kody sat with arms crossed, eyes fiery with defiance, and Robin beside him, shoulders curled inward, lips quivering, her hands gripping the edge of the table, as if trying to hold on to the last remaining pieces of their kingdom. This wasn't just about land anymore, it was about promises made and broken, years of emotional manipulation buried beneath platitudes of spiritual unity. The courtroom lights bore down harsh and clinical, and the silence was deafening when the judge leaned into his microphone and declared, "The court finds in favor of the plaintiffs, Christine and Janelle Brown." It was as if the oxygen had been vacuumed from the room. Everything Kody fought to control, every inch of that dry Arizona dirt he once called the future of his family, had just been stripped from his hands in one ruling. And the truth was, he never saw it coming, not like this, not this final. It didn't start in a courtroom, it started in a kitchen, with coffee mugs, unpaid bills, and years of unspoken resentment. Christine, already long removed from Kody's orbit, had finally found peace away from the chaos, but Janelle had been different. She had stayed, tolerated, negotiated, until the promise of Coyote Pass became more than a dream, it became a battleground. The so-called family property had been dangled like a carrot for over a decade, a shared vision that was never built but always spoken of, always postponed. When Christine left, she walked away with nothing. When Janelle asked for clarification documents, deeds, a written trust, she was stonewalled. What she found instead were title transfers, shady holding companies tied to Kody's name, and a trail of financial maneuvers that diverted her money into Robin's massive Flagstaff home mortgage. It was betrayal and legal. Christine, watching from the sidelines, didn't hesitate to join forces when Janelle decided to lawyer up. The lawsuit hit Kody like a freight train, not because of its legal merit, but because of what it represented: rebellion. These women weren't just exes, they were co-owners, co-investors, and now co-plaintiffs. The case centered around equitable ownership, breach of verbal contract, and financial misrepresentation. The court allowed discovery, and that's when it unraveled. Kody had made promises in text, in emails, even on camera, promises he thought would disappear with time. But paper doesn't forget, and neither do ex-wives pushed too far. From the moment discovery began, it was clear this wasn't going to be a typical civil case. It was a war of receipts, and Christine and Janelle came armed like generals ready for battle. Their legal team compiled a comprehensive dossier spanning over 10 years, filled with damning voice messages, recorded family meetings, and bank transfers that painted a picture far different than the spiritual unity Kody always claimed to uphold. Among the most explosive pieces of evidence, a video deposition where Kody smugly declared that Robin's house is the family home now. Coyote Pass can wait. The clip was time-stamped just a month after Janelle had made a down payment on a parcel of the pass. The courtroom gasped, even the judge visibly blinked. One exhibit showed Kody redirecting Janelle's money, intended for land development, toward a balloon mortgage on Robin's residence. Another featured a group text in which Kody wrote, "Coyote Pass is mine to manage, you're lucky to be included." The arrogance, the entitlement, it was all laid bare under oath. And when Christine testified, her voice didn't tremble. "We gave up our youth, our money, our belief in a future Kody never intended to build," she told the court. He weaponized hope. Kody's defense leaned on technicalities, that verbal agreements aren't binding, that no signatures existed, but the emotional and ethical weight was undeniable. The judge warned him mid-trial, "This case isn't just about paperwork, it's about intent, and your intent looks dangerously close to fraud." The moment Robin took the stand, her teary-eyed confusion did little to sway the tide. She claimed she didn't know about the redirected funds, but the bank records told another story. The walls of Coyote Pass were crumbling, and the foundation had been built on lies. The courtroom was still when Robin Brown returned to the stand for cross-examination. Her image, the tearful, misunderstood last wife of the sister wives' empire, was about to be shattered. Christine and Janelle's attorneys didn't go in for personal attacks. Instead, they used documents, timestamps, and Robin's own words to trap her in a maze of contradictions. First came the financial record. The attorney presented 3 wire transfers from the Joint Family Development Fund to a Flagstaff escrow account, titled under Robin and Kody's name. The date on the first transfer, just days after Janelle had submitted her share for Coyote Pass grading permit. "Did you authorize this transfer?" the attorney asked. Robin hesitated, looked at Kody and then said, "I don't remember," but her signature was on the approval. Next came emails, Robin urging Kody to prioritize stability over wild land. In one she wrote, "Let's stop pretending this is for the family. We need to think about our children." The emphasis stung. The idea that the pass was ever meant to be an equal inheritance collapsed under the weight of exclusivity and manipulation. And then came the final blow, a previously unreleased scene from season 18, cut from the show, where Robin told producers, "Coyote Pass is just a story." Kody tells the others, so they feel included. It was played in court. Christine lowered her head. Janelle blinked slowly. He turned red with rage. The courtroom no longer saw a misunderstood wife. They saw someone complicit. The judge, who had remained reserved until now, leaned forward and asked Robin directly, "Do you understand what misappropriation of funds means?" Silent. This wasn't reality television anymore. This was the real world, and in the real world, actions had consequences. The judge's patience was thinning. The press had picked up the story. TMZ, People, even Reddit threads were swarming with headlines. Robin knew, Kody lied. Christine and Janelle sued. The Brown family facade was cracking, and Coyote Pass was no longer a dream. It was evidence. By the time court adjourned that day, the headlines were already plastered across social media feeds, news tickers, and YouTube thumbnails. Kody lied under oath. Robin implicated in land scheme. Christine and Janelle take the stand. But nothing sent the online world into more of a frenzy than what happened in the final minutes of that courtroom session. Christine's lawyer submitted an addendum to Kody's original TLC contract. What began as a property dispute was now a full-blown network liability issue, and for the first time in years, Kody Brown wasn't just battling his family, he was on the verge of losing the very machine that kept his public image alive. The document revealed a shocking clause buried deep in the contract Kody signed with TLC back in season 16, a clause that designated him as the primary male lead and estate trustee of any jointly held property featured on the show. That included Coyote Pass. It was the kind of contract clause, written in legalese so thick no one would think to question it. No one until now. Christine's lawyer laid it bare for the court to see. The clause effectively gave Kody not just narrative control on screen, but financial and legal leverage off screen. And guess who drafted the clause with TLC's legal counsel? Robin's brother, a legal assistant at the time. The connection wasn't illegal, but the optics were devastating. Suddenly, this wasn't about divorce or land. This was about fraud by omission, manipulation through production, and weaponizing reality TV contracts against real family members. Outside the courthouse, angry fans gathered. Some held signs that read "Justice for Janelle," and Coyote Pass was alive. Inside TLC's offices, XX held emergency Zoom meetings, debating whether to release a statement or pull the plug. Sponsors were getting nervous. Meanwhile, Kody sat in his attorney's office, rewatching clips of himself declaring to viewers that Coyote Pass belongs to all of us. With every playback, his credibility melted further. He was no longer the polygamist patriarch. He was the villain of his own saga. And as if that wasn't enough, the judge issued a warning to Kody. If further documentation shows you used network compensation to shield assets from your wives, this court will pursue punitive damages. That phrase, punitive damages, echoed through the courtroom like a death bell. It meant not just losing the land, but the possibility of financial ruin. Kody's jaw clenched. Robin's face turned pale. Janelle and Christine, they smiled for the first time. The war over Coyote Pass was becoming something far greater, a public reckoning of years of deceit, and the world was watching with popcorn in hand. The courthouse buzzed with a different kind of tension the next morning. Reporters shuffled into their usual seats, courtroom sketch artists sharpened their pencils, and the gallery brimmed with unfamiliar faces, legal aides, TLC staff, and a small army of curious viewers who had followed every twist of the courtroom saga on social media. But what no one expected, what no one could have possibly seen coming, was the moment Mary Brown walked through the courtroom doors, not beside Kody, but flanked by Christine and Janelle, the woman who had once defended Kody during his most turbulent seasons, who stayed silent during his public favoritism toward Robin, was now walking toward the witness stand, as a star witness for the plaintiffs. "I was lied to," Mary said, voice steady but eyes glassy. "He told me Coyote Pass was our future, that we'd build a legacy for our children." But everything changed the day Robin came into the picture. It was no longer about we, it was always about her. The courtroom fell silent, not even Kody moved, his expression locked somewhere between disbelief and betrayal, his hand gripping the table edge. As Mary continued, "He signed the land documents while telling us they weren't final. I saw the emails, I heard the phone calls, I was told not to ask questions, because it wasn't my concern anymore. I stayed quiet out of loyalty. But now, I owe these women the truth. This is the moment fans never thought they'd see." Mary turning against Kody in court, revealing the secrets she'd kept hidden for years, and it was about to get even more explosive. As Mary stepped down, the judge took a moment to compose himself. Before he could even request a recess, Christine's attorney stood up with a confident tone and announced, "Your Honor, we have one final witness." And just like that, the doors opened again. In walked a former TLC producer, his identity long kept secret due to a non-disclosure agreement, now waived in light of a court subpoena. The man had spent years behind the scenes, capturing the Browns' every tear, confession, and confrontation. But what he now revealed changed the entire trajectory of the case. He brought receipts, literal receipts, production notes, off-camera transcripts, emails between Kody and network executive. One thread revealed a conversation where Kody explicitly asked TLC to script scenes about building on Coyote Pass, despite knowing the land was never going to be developed. The reason? Viewer engagement. He said it kept the audience hopeful. The producer said he referred to it as the carrot he'd never have to actually give them. Gasps rippled through the gallery. The judge leaned forward, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Are you suggesting that Mr. Brown fabricated an entire family narrative for financial gain?" he asked. "Yes, Your Honor," the witness replied. "And he used that narrative to keep these women attached to a dream that never existed." As Kody sat there visibly unraveling, Robin leaned in to whisper something. He pulled back. For the first time, he didn't want to hear it. His empire was falling, not from outside forces, but from within, from the women who had loved him, followed him, trusted him, and now, one by one, they were rising, not in rage, but in truth. And in the center of it all stood Coyote Pass, the symbol of everything, the dream, the lie, the battleground. The air in the courtroom was dense with disbelief. As the former TLC producer stepped down, the revelations had shattered the curated image of Kody Brown that viewers had accepted for over a decade. But the prosecution wasn't finished, not even close. Now came the hammer blow, the financial audit. Christine and Janelle's legal team had obtained court-ordered access to Kody's finances, and what they found painted a portrait not of a husband balancing family love, but of a man strategically siphoning assets like a boardroom shark. "We present to the court," the attorney began, raising a thick folder, over $1.2 million in previously undeclared income funneled through LLCs, owned solely by Mr. Brown, separate from the family's shared trusts. Kody stiffened. Robin's face, already tight with anxiety, went pale. What made this revelation particularly damning was how Kody had routed the money through shell companies, registered under obscure names, names tied back to Robin's brother, and even a former assistant from Las Vegas. The courtroom gasped when the term fraudulent real estate shell was mentioned. Even the judge arched a brow. Mr. Brown, do you have any formal documentation or records that show you disclosed these entities to your wives at any point? Kody's voice trembled as he responded, they were separate business ventures. I didn't think, but the judge raised a hand. That's enough. What happened next shook Robin's image beyond repair and revealed a betrayal deeper than anyone saw coming, because hidden within the fine print was a trust fund with only her name on it. Christine's attorney stepped forward again. Your Honor, we also discovered the existence of a trust fund set up shortly after the Browns moved to Flagstaff. This fund contains over $600,000 and is in the sole name of Robin Brown. The room erupted. Robin, now visibly shaking, whispered something to Kody, but this time he didn't even look at her. Funds from the family's TLC earnings and book deals were deposited here, the attorney explained. These accounts were never disclosed to the other wives, yet receipts show these funds were used to pay down the mortgage on Robin's Flagstaff mansion and the private schooling of her children, all while Janelle lived in an RV and Christine was asking for basic repairs for her daughter's surgery. The juxtaposition was brutal. Janelle and Christine exchanged glances, not with smugness, but quiet vindication. They had been gaslit for years, told the money was tight, while Robin lived in suburban luxury. The judge, visibly disturbed, issued a firm statement. The court now considers this a pattern of financial manipulation, bordering on marital fraud. Continued non-disclosure of such assets, if proven intentional, may warrant criminal investigation. Kody tried to interrupt, but the judge cut him off again. Mr. Brown, you are warned. One more inconsistency, one more omission, and this courtroom will no longer view this as a civil case. Do you understand? Kody nodded, lips pursed, eyes darting like a trapped man. In that moment, the power had shifted completely. He no longer held the emotional leverage he'd once lorded over his wives. The courtroom, the fans watching online, and even the judge, had begun to see him not as the misunderstood patriarch, but as the architect of the deception. And Christine, she wasn't just reclaiming property, she was reclaiming truth. The gavel hadn't even settled from the judge's previous warning when the courtroom doors creaked open again, and Robin Brown was called to the stand. The courtroom buzzed. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. Robin under oath, no longer protected by Kody's deflections or fan narrative. The favorite wife, often portrayed as the silent manipulator or misunderstood loyalist, was now forced to face the raw truth in front of the court, her co-wives, and millions following the case like a televised saga. She took the stand in silence, her usual stoic expression now stripped down to anxious vulnerability. The prosecutor didn't wait long. Mrs. Brown, are you aware that the $600,000 trust fund is solely under your name and that joint family earnings funded it? Robin's voice cracked. Kody told me it was for our retirement, for the kids. I didn't know the others weren't included, but the attorney pounced. You didn't know Janelle was living in an RV while that account paid for your children's tuition? Her silence said everything. Gasps echoed through the courtroom, even from reporters who had grown desensitized to the family's scandals. Then came the documents, signed withdrawals, property transfers, evidence that Robin not only knew of the fund, but had authorized payments. Christine stared at her in disbelief. Janelle's lips curled into a bitter half-smile. The courtroom was watching a facade crumble live, and just when it seemed like Robin's testimony would be the climax, Mary stood up with a sealed envelope, what she held in her hands. A handwritten will, one that Kody had hid. The judge allowed it. Proceed, he said, curiosity piqued. Mary approached the bench, her voice surprisingly steady. This was written by Kody before we moved to Flagstaff. It outlines equal ownership of Coyote Pass. All 4 wives were to inherit 1/4 of the property, but this document was never filed. He told me later it was outdated, that it didn't apply anymore. She handed it to the court. The judge read it silently, and then looked up. Mrs. Brown, can you confirm this is Kody's handwriting? Yes, I was there when he wrote. We were still all pretending to be a family. The courtroom went silent. What this meant was devastating to Kody's argument. All this time, he had claimed that the land was intended to be split fairly, that Robin's house was a temporary asset, that Christine and Janelle had left voluntarily, but now the court had written proof that Kody had once promised them this land, and he had buried that promise. Kody tried to object, shouting, "That was a draft, it wasn't legally binding," but his voice cracked, desperation dripping from each syllable. The judge had heard enough. This document, the judge said, combined with the pattern of asset concealment and financial misrepresentation, alters the court's perception of this case. We now must view Mr. Brown's actions as potentially premeditated. It wasn't just a family fight anymore, it was potential fraud. Cameras outside the courtroom caught the moment Christine and Janelle exited for recess, arm in arm, smiling for the first time in weeks. Reporters swarmed them, asking if they felt vindicated. Christine simply said, "It's not about winning, it's about truth, and our children knowing their mothers weren't weak." Inside, Kody sat alone at the defendant's table. Robin had returned to her seat, head bowed, tears streaming, as if realizing this wasn't just a court case, it was the final scene in a drama she helped write, and now couldn't The courtroom felt more like a ticking time bomb than a place of law. As the final day of testimony began, the gallery was packed wall to wall with reporters, fans, and even former TLC producers who'd once filmed the Brown family's rise to fame. Now they were watching it all crash, not through the lens of reality television, but in the harsh, fluorescent light of legal truth. Christine and Janelle sat shoulder to shoulder, poised and confident. Kody, in contrast, appeared visibly thinner, his hair disheveled, eyes darting around the courtroom, like a man searching for an escape route. Robin sat next to him, distant, hollow, her once carefully maintained image now frayed at the edges. Mary was nowhere to be seen. Some whispered she was preparing her own separate case. The judge called the court to order. All final statements will be heard today. There will be no extensions, no further witness testimonies. The court is prepared to rule based on the evidence and arguments provided. First up, the plaintiffs. Christine's attorney stood tall. His voice carried a gravitas that hushed even the shuffling feet and whispering cameras. "Your Honor, this is not merely about land. This is about legacy, about betrayal wrapped in legal maneuvering." Mr. Brown orchestrated a lie that spanned years. He presented himself to the world as a man of spiritual integrity, a husband who treated each wife equally, but behind closed doors, and now in court documents, we've seen a very different man. He held up the signed This proves intent. He intended to share Coyote Pass, but what did he do instead? He used joint family income to finance a mansion for Robin. He funneled assets through hidden trusts, and when Christine and Janelle questioned the fairness of it, he told them they were being ungrateful. The lawyer paused for effect. "Your Honor, the betrayal is not emotional, it is financial, and in the eyes of the law it is fraud." Kody's lawyer stood slowly. His tone was defensive, almost weary. "Mr. Brown never had malicious intent. The family dynamic was fluid. Decisions were made based on who remained committed to the marriage, not who yelled the loudest on television. Yes, mistakes were made, but calling it a scam ignores the years of support Kody gave to all his wives." Christine's attorney fired back, requesting permission for a rebuttal. "Support? With whose money?" he shouted. "The wives built businesses, raised children, and were promised a future on that land. Instead, they were left with debt, emotional trauma, and eviction notices." The judge intervened. "Enough." But just when the courtroom settled, the judge said 7 words that stunned everyone. "Bring in the forensic accountant's final report." It was unsealed that morning. Inside, a complete audit of Coyote Pass. Every payment, every hidden fund, every time Kody redirected family earnings to build Robin's Flagstaff mansion. Even more damning, it showed that Kody refinanced part of Coyote Pass behind the wives' backs to secure loans that were then used to pay off Robin's personal debts. Robin buried her face in her hands. Kody's face turned red with rage. Christine turned to Janelle, whispering, "We were right." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. The judge called for silence, scanning the document. "It is now evident to this court that Miss Brown misrepresented the financial structure of the Brown family holdings for personal benefit." What was presented as plural marriage equality was, in fact, a centralized funneling of resources to support one household, to the detriment of the others. He looked directly at Kody. This court views your actions as financial misconduct under the premise of spiritual marriage. And as such, the plaintiffs, Christine Brown and Janelle Brown, have valid claims to shared property interest in Coyote Pass. He wasn't done. In addition, the court finds that continued ownership by Mr. Brown would present an ongoing conflict of interest. Therefore, the court orders the immediate transfer of 66% of the Coyote Pass deed to the plaintiffs, with the remaining 34% to be sold and split based on recorded contributions. The courtroom fell completely silent and then burst into shocked gasps. Christine's jaw dropped. Janelle closed her eyes, letting a tear fall. Kody collapsed into his chair, muttering something no mic could catch. Robin leaned in, but he shrugged her off. The judge stood. This ruling is final. As Christine and Janelle walked out, they were mobbed by supporters. Some chanted, "Justice for the wives." Others cried, saying they felt seen. It was more than just a court case. It was symbolic justice for years of invisible heartbreak. But the story's not over yet. Outside the courtroom, the atmosphere was unlike anything seen in the Sister Wives universe before. What once was a carefully managed image of a plural marriage filled with love and understanding had exploded in front of a global audience. And now, the fallout was tearing through not just the family, but the empire they had built. Cameras rolled. Microphones crowded around Christine and Janelle as they stepped into the sunlight, clutching copies of the court's final ruling. For the first time in years, they were victorious, not just in spirit, but in law. They didn't just win their freedom from Kody, they won the land he swore they'd never own, the same land that had been dangled in front of them, like a carrot in exchange for loyalty, the same land that had broken their trust, their unity, and nearly their financial security. And yet, Christine smiled, not out of spite, but relief. Kody always said Coyote Pass was our legacy, she told the crowd of reporters. Turns out, it still is, just not the way he imagined. Across town, the storm hit Kody like a tidal wave. TLC executives convened an emergency meeting within hours of the ruling. Viewership of the trial coverage had skyrocketed, but behind closed doors, the network was panicking. Sponsors were pulling out. A whistleblower from production leaked that the network had known about the financial discrepancies for months and did nothing to intervene. One producer said off the record, "We thought we were filming a unique American family. Turns out, we were documenting a fraud." By noon the next day, Sister Wives was officially on indefinite hiatus. TLC issued a cold, calculated press release. In light of recent legal revelations, TLC will be suspending production of Sister Wives until further notice. "We are committed to ethical storytelling and the safety of all cast members." That she too contributed to Coyote Pass through both her boutique business and her shared earnings from the show. And unlike Christine and Janelle, she had signed financial documents with Kody dating back to their legal marriage in the 90s. Her lawyer made it clear, this is not just about land, it's about restitution for years of emotional, financial, and spiritual manipulation. Kody's legal team tried to stay ahead, but the walls were closing in. The judge's statement from Part 9, calling Kody's marriage structure a form of fraud, became the headline across every major news outlet. Reddit threads exploded. YouTube channels, including your own, TLC Breakdown, saw view counts skyrocket overnight. Robin, still reeling from the courtroom loss, went radio silent. No interviews, no Instagram, no statement, but TMZ reported she had secretly consulted with a divorce attorney 2 weeks before the court verdict, suggesting the emotional unraveling began far earlier than fans realized. Meanwhile, Coyote Pass itself became a battleground. Surveyors were spotted mapping the land, construction notices were pulled from county records, filed by Christine and Janelle under a new LLC. They weren't just taking the land, they were building on it. Rumors spread, a retreat center, A family sanctuary, even a podcast studio. The speculation only fueled Kody's rage. In a leaked phone call obtained by Reality Radar, Kody could be heard screaming at a friend, "They've stolen everything, my family, my land, my legacy. They want to erase me, but I'm not done." But public sentiment was clear. Kody wasn't the patriarch anymore, he was the defendant. Fan signs read, "Believe the wives." Protesters outside TLC's office chanted, "No more Robin rewrite." And online, one viral tweet said it best. Kody built a kingdom of lies and watched it burn, and as the dust settled, the final nail came in the form of a letter, not from the courts, not from a network, but from Christine and Janelle, sent to Kody's legal team. The content, a request to buy out Kody's remaining share of Coyote Pass completely, not just 66%, the rest, all of it. The reason, Christine planned to turn her portion into a family-owned wellness retreat, a healing space for single mothers and spiritual survivors. Janelle, she'd hinted at a book deal titled Reclaiming the Land, My Journey Beyond Plural Lies. Kody's team rejected the offer, but he didn't. In a moment of exhaustion, facing mounting legal fees, burned bridges, and a public reputation in shambles, he signed the deed. No cameras, no press, just a signature. And with it, the dream of Coyote Pass, the one that once symbolized unity and destiny, became the property of the women he'd underestimated most. Kody walked away from the land, from the dream and from the lie he built with trembling hands and shattered pride. Christine and Janelle watched from a distance. "You think he'll fight again?" Janelle asked. Christine shook her head. "Not this time. The land doesn't lie."